Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your patience as we arrange for all our heads of government to exit their vehicles. We continue to wait, and in the interim, we ask your cooperation by placing your cellular telephones on silent or vibrate, please. So a timely reminder, could you find your phone, even if you think it's on silent, could you just double check for us, please, and ensure that it is silent or vibrate. But our heads of governments are arriving and they will be entering shortly. In the meantime, the Jamaica Military Band continues.
And welcome to the Jamaica Information Service live stream. We're coming to you live from the Montego Bay. Now you are witnessing the arrival of the heads of government of CARICOM. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is greeting each head, and then there will be the official proceeding of the heads of government and the flags of the 20 member countries of CARICOM, 15 members and 5 associate members. Musical prelude by the talented Jamaica Military Band of the Jamaica Defense Force. On screen now, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Andrew Holness and Secretary General of CARICOM, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, greeting each guest as they arrive. You are watching our live stream coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is chairman of CARICOM. He assumed that responsibility on July 1, and this will run until December 31. So we are standing by for the procession of the heads of government and, of course, the flag procession. So Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Secretary General of CARICOM standing by to greet each guest as they arrive and to ensure that all heads are in place for the procession, which is coming up shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in to the JIS's live stream coverage. And a quick shout out to those who have sounded off in the comments, like Dawn Marie Williams, Jevon Jones, Anne Marie Callia, Dejane Sandria Malcolm, Anne Marie Duncan. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live stream coverage. And please tell us, where are you watching from? And remember to share the stream so your family and friends can also share in this experience. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Lorraine Mendez.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the procession of the flags of our CARICOM member states. The procession of flags is carried out by the honor guards of the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica National Service Corps. The Jamaica National Service Corps was recently established to focus on youth aged 18 to 23. It creates an avenue for young people to be fully empowered through national service. The young men and women spend 1 year within the Corps and can choose after service completion whether they will sign a longer contract with the Army. This new recruitment window provides training and incorporates prospects for the drafting of some 700 young people. And that will bring up the annual intake of the Jamaica Defense Force to 1,000. The procession of flags of our CARICOM member states, carried out by honor guards of the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica National Service Corps. The procession of CARICOM dignitaries now follows the parade of flags. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. Ladies and gentlemen, the heads of state, government, and associate members of the Caribbean Community. The Honorable Gaston Browne, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. The Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
The procession of flags now complete. We are witnessing the procession of the heads of government.
The Honorable Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados.
You are watching our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
The Honorable Dean Oliver Barrow, Prime Minister of Belize. He is not with us, and the next is the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. His Excellency, Brigadier David Granger, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
This year's conference is being held under the chairmanship of Jamaica's Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, who assumed the role of Chairman of CARICOM on July 1, 2018.
His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of the Republic of Haiti.
Prime Minister Holness will serve for 6 months until December 31, 2018. He has lead responsibility for external trade negotiations in the CARICOM quasi-cabinet.
The Honorable Romeo Donaldson, Premier of Montserrat.
Jamaica's Prime Minister succeeded outgoing Chairman, His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of Haiti. You also heard a resounding applause for the newest Prime Minister of CARICOM, Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados.
Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis.
While in Jamaica, the CARICOM heads are expected to discuss matters including measures impacting the implementation of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, the CSME, crime and security in the region, and emerging geopolitical developments which can have an impact on the region's growth prospects.
The Honorable Alan Chastanet, Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
CARICOM is actually the oldest surviving integration movement in the developing world. It came into being on July 4, 1973 with the Treaty of Chagaramas, signed by Prime Ministers Errol Barrow for Barbados, Forbes Burnham for Guyana, Michael Manley for Jamaica, and Eric Williams for Trinidad and Tobago. The treaty was later revised in 2002 to allow for the eventual establishment of the Single Market and Economy, the CSME.
Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We're coming to you live from the Montego Bay Convention Center, situated along the elegant corridor of Rose Hall in the parish of St. James, Jamaica. Welcome to our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
His Excellency Désiré Delano Bouterse, President of the Republic of Suriname.
Special welcome to those tuning in on PBCJ, on the JIS Facebook page or website, Jamaica Information Service website, and persons tuning in on YouTube. Welcome to our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
We are welcoming the heads of government of the member states of CARICOM. Now, CARICOM is a grouping of 20 countries, 15 member states, and 5 associate members. It's home to approximately 16 million people from diverse ethnic backgrounds.
Our associate members, the Honorable E. David Burt, Premier of Bermuda. Dr. the Honorable Orlando Smith, Premier of the British Virgin Islands.
The 5 associate members of CARICOM: Anguilla, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. The CARICOM community stretches from the Bahamas in the
The
north
Honorable Alden McLaughlin Jr., Premier of the Cayman Islands.
to Suriname and Guyana on the South American mainland.
The Honorable Charlene Cartwright Robinson, Premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands.
The Conference of Heads of Government consists of the heads of government of the member states. It's the supreme organ or highest decision-making body of CARICOM, and it determines and provides policy direction for the community.
Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Chairman of CARICOM.
Prime Minister Holness assumed chairmanship of CARICOM on July 1, and this will continue until December 31. This year's conference is under the theme Building My apologies. This year's conference is under the theme Building Stronger, Resilient, and Secure Partnerships for Prosperity.
Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Jamaica. Dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation to be delivered by Pastor Glenn O. Samuels, President, West Jamaica Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists.
Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. Sovereign God, to you we lift our hearts in acknowledgement of your sovereignty and your divine blessings over our leaders and our people. We pray your guiding hand in this significant conference. We thank you for divine protection from past ravages. And even as our people enter this new hurricane season, we invoke your divine hand to protect us from the ravages possible. And now, Almighty God, on the chairman of this 39th regular conference, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, we ask for wisdom that he guides as you would guide him. For the heads of government, we thank you for divine protection as they travel. Grant, O gracious Father, that they'll protect not only the independence we treasure, but guide our people towards economic independence. Into your hands, we commit this conference and thank you for your promised protection and guiding hand. These we ask in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Samuels. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. It is now time to invite Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, to bring the statements with his opening remarks to the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community. Help me welcome him to the microphone, please.
19 of 20 member states, the heads of government of 19 of 20 member states of CARICOM are present here today for the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government.
Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen, Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of the Republic of Haiti, our outgoing Chairman, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the Caribbean Community, Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Chief Justice, President of the Court of Appeal, Members of Parliament, Members of Cabinet, former Prime Ministers of Jamaica, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson and Mr. Bruce Golding, heads of regional institutions, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished delegates, distinguished guests, people of the Caribbean community, ladies and gentlemen all. Today, the 4th of July, is CARICOM Day. 45 years ago, on this date, 4 countries signed the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Happy CARICOM Day. As we open this 39th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, I must at the outset express my profound appreciation to the government and people of Jamaica for the excellent hospitality extended to all of us. The arrangements put in place for the conduct of the meeting ensure an atmosphere conducive to the productive sessions here in Montego Bay, which has a rich history in the integration movement. It was here in Montego Bay in 1947 that the Conference of the Closer Association of the British West Indies rekindled the integration movement. It was here in 1997 that the decision to admit Haiti to membership of the Caribbean Community was taken, and it was here in 2003 that the Rose Hall Declaration on Community Governance was adopted. The opportunity is with us once again to have a historic moment in Montego Bay with respect to the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, the CSME. The community will be led over the next 6 months by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, as the Chairman of Conference. I have no doubt that under his guidance, the interests of our region will be further advanced. I want to take this opportunity to extend thanks to His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of Haiti, for his able leadership of the community since January. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Conference of Heads of Government the Honorable Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Prime Minister Mottley is no stranger to the councils of the community and is a committed regionalist who now assumes the role of the lead head of government for the CSME. Prime Minister, I look forward to working closely with you as we advance the CSME. I must also congratulate the Honorable Gaston Browne, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, who both returned to conference after victories at the polls since the last meeting. Might I add, Prime Minister Mottley, that you joined Prime Minister Keith Mitchell in a clean sweep. The Honorable David Burt, Premier of Bermuda, is attending his first meeting of the heads of government, and we look forward to his fresh perspectives on the issues. We will be welcoming to this meeting His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel, the President of Cuba, who will be having his first engagement with our heads of government, continuing the fraternal relations between our countries. We will also be welcoming His Excellency Sebastián Pinera, the President of Chile. The community and Chile have strong relations, which no doubt will be enhanced during the discussions between our leaders. Mr. Chairman, heads of government, a short while ago, we witnessed the swearing-in of Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders as the third President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. I congratulate President Saunders on his assumption of this most important office. The CCJ represents the essence of our independence and sovereignty and our commitment to the autonomy of the judicial system. Judges of this court are appointed by an independent regional judicial and legal services commission after a rigorous process of recruitment. The President is appointed by the conference on the recommendation of the RJLSC after a similar process. It is an integral edifice in the regional architecture, providing certainty and predictability in the interpretation and application of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which established and governs the CSME, our platform for engineering sustainable growth and development in our community. Since the CSME was inaugurated here in Jamaica 12 years ago, we all agree that much has been accomplished under its regimes, but we have not achieved as much as we should have by now. Major policy decisions and adoption of legal instruments take much too long to be negotiated. We must do more and do it more quickly. The success of the CSME is being judged by the public on the basis of our implementation of the measures agreed to that allow our citizens and businesses to benefit. This meeting will include a special session on the single market and economy to look at ways of making it more effective. That session will benefit from the views of a stakeholder consultation, which I convened last month in Georgetown. Participants at that event confirmed that the CSME remained the most viable option and platform to enable the community and its nationals to achieve their goals of sustainable growth and development. They, however, pointed to areas which needed to be improved substantially. They expressed particular concern about the ease of doing business and the movement of skilled nationals. The participants also lamented the lack of compliance with already agreed measures. They stressed the need for an enforcement and accountability framework to encourage implementation and compliance. It is one of the issues which features among the recommendations of the report of the Commission to review Jamaica's relations within CARICOM and CARIFORUM frameworks, which is before this meeting. The views and recommendations of that Commission add a voice to the conversation on the future of CARICOM and the CSME. On Monday in Kingston, I had a social media interaction with the youth of the region, led by the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. Their topic of choice was their role in advancing the CSME, for which they displayed tremendous enthusiasm and eagerness to be a catalyst for improving implementation. They also expressed their concerns with respect to issues of mental health and requested a regional approach, just as we are doing with non-communicable diseases and HIV/AIDS. The effects of climate change on the region was another topic on which we engaged. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the vulnerability of our member states to natural hazards and the effects of climate change remain serious challenges to our sustainable development. This is even more so in this era of the new normal of megastorms and other highly unusual climatic events as experienced last September. It compels us to become more climate resilient. We must examine how, as a region, we can enhance the capacity to build resilience within member states to resist the effects and recover quickly from these climatic events. Discussions on this matter were held over the last 3 days here in Montego Bay, and a report will be presented to the heads of government at this meeting. At this meeting also, the report of the Marijuana Commission will be presented for consideration. This independent commission, comprising of experts in the fields of law, ethics, sociology, psychiatry, medical and social research, and criminology, looked in depth at the social, economic, health, and legal issues surrounding marijuana use. It is a topic that is engaging societies globally, and this report provides an opportunity for a reasoned discourse, not only among our leaders, but the entire community. I must thank the commissioners, led by Professor Rosemary Bell Antoine, for their dedication to the task and the considerable amount of work they undertook. The Commission conducted consultations in member states, receiving a wide spectrum of views. These were distilled into recommendations on issues such as decriminalization, medical use, its listing as a controlled substance, and advice against recreational use by children and adolescents. It must be noted that medical marijuana presents an economic opportunity for our region. Mr. Chairman, it's a government. You have before you, over the next 2 days, matters which, if we can conclude on, will have a significant impact on the direction of our community. I close by endorsing to you the words of the Golden Commission as our guide, and I quote, "The value of regional integration, notwithstanding the current wave of economic nationalism in various parts of the world, is as relevant and useful and perhaps even more urgent today than it was at its inception, and can provide us a more secure passage to a brighter future than each of us trying to row his own boat alone." I do thank you.
CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, a national of Dominica. He assumed the office of Secretary General
Thank
of
you,
the Caribbean
Secretary
Community
General.
on 15th
We
of
will now
August
have remarks by
2011.
the Honorable Gaston Browne, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda.
We will be hearing from the Honorable Mia Mottley of Barbados. We will also hear from Prime
Thank you,
Minister Gaston
Madam
Browne of
Chairlady.
Antigua and Prime Minister Keith
Excellencies,
Mitchell of Grenada.
Sir Patrick Allen and Lady Allen, the Most Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, incoming Chairman of CARICOM, President Moise, outgoing Chairman, other distinguished heads, members of the Cabinet of Jamaica, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to include our new President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, His Excellency Justice Adrian Saunders, and I also acknowledge former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson, fellow Caribbeaners, ladies and gentlemen. I speak at the opening ceremony of this important conference of heads of government of the Caribbean community because of my party's electoral victory in the general elections of March 22nd, 2018, that gave me the distinct honor of serving as Prime Minister for a second term. In seeking the overwhelming mandate that we received, my party gave the people of Antigua and Barbuda the sacred undertaking to maintain the closest possible relations with our neighboring states in the Caribbean community in pursuit of our shared objectives. That is an undertaking that my government staunchly intends to fulfill. Acknowledge that the Caribbean is our neighborhood. We know that none of our countries can pick up and leave for a better area. We recognize that each of our countries has to improve this neighborhood. We have to make it more prosperous, and we certainly have to raise up the level of its value. We are also conscious that no single CARICOM country has the capacity to face the present or future challenges alone, however much national pride and misplaced bigotry might suggest otherwise. There is an unavoidable interdependence of geographical neighbors that compels cooperation, collaboration, and integration to meet our developmental needs. In fact, geography is destiny. No country can relocate from its region. We are permanently stuck in this geographic space, and we must do all in our power to ensure the success of this region. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a product of the Caribbean integration cause. I was born a couple of years after Barrow, Byrd, and Burnham reignited the flame of regional integration at Dickinson Bay in Antigua in 1965 by launching CARICOM. All my conscious life, the light of that flame has illumined my belief that together the countries of the Caribbean would rise above their smallness to forge an irresistible unity that would be our collective economic salvation. The unity of the region is the salvation of our people. Integration is not only desirable, but it is inescapable. But it has been 53 long years since the flame of integration was reignited at Dickinson Bay from the ashes of the West Indies Federation. Surely, in 53 years, we should have been further along the road to economic integration than we are now. Others started after us, yet they have galloped ahead, creating for themselves internal markets that have enhanced their domestic production and developing the means to access the markets of others. The European Union of 9 started after us, but look at the economic force it has begun with a membership of 28 and others knocking on its door. Ladies and gentlemen, as we convene as leaders of our Caribbean countries, we should not deceive ourselves that the people of our region have great hope for the outcome of our ritual meeting. After 53 years of crawling through the process of integration, disappointment has replaced hope, and skepticism has overwhelmed faith. But we have a chance at this summit to change that situation and to restore trust and confidence in the people that we can make and implement joint decisions that will improve their lives, that we can do more than talk, that we can take action. After all, we are in Montego Bay, where, in a sense, the recognition of our shared condition was first articulated, and where the leaders who preceded us seized the vision of our oneness. It was here in 1947, for instance, that West Indian leaders established a standing closer association committee to draft a federal constitution. That the federal government failed was not the fault of its vision or the validity of its purpose. If anything, both the vision and the purpose remain relevant and compelling today. That is why, despite the siren songs of the separatists among us, the inherent conviction that we can best overcome the challenges that confront us by acting together has appealed to the angels of our better sense. We have only to consider the circumstances or our country's individual collective experience to recognize the crucial importance of integration and unity. The rich countries of the international community might today acknowledge the vulnerabilities of our small states, but nonetheless, they deny us the means to overcome them. We are classified as ineligible for concessional financing because we also run successful democracies where the rights of workers are upheld, as are improved wages for labor. The single criterion of per capita income slams shut the door to bilateral and multilateral grants and other concessional funding. The resulting difficulty we encounter in accessing international capital markets forces us to borrow on onerous terms keeping us in a spiral of debt, or perhaps more appropriately, a death spiral. Many of us are now held hostage to accumulating interest rates on commercial debt incurred to recover from the recurring natural disasters or loss of preferential markets. Yet the Paris Club is immune from our appeals for reasonable rescheduling of those debts, including some forgiveness. And the natural disasters caused by climate change, to whose creation we made little or no contribution, grow in their frequency and intensity. All of us, as we meet here, are deeply conscious that we are in the hurricane season. We each live in fear that many of our countries might be crippled in the coming months, with no meaningful response to our plight from the international community, including those who are the worst perpetrators of climate change. Significantly, we must respond to these developments and their far-reaching implications for our capacity to serve the well-being of our people at a time of unprecedented change and unpredictability in the global community. Global rules are under assault. The international system has been weakened, and international law is being ignored. The very difficulties in the international political economy and their effects on our region cry out for more, not less integration. There should be no doubt that one of the most important solutions to the difficult economic circumstances our countries collectively face is a deepening and widening of the regional integration process. And at the heart of that process must be the realization of the Caribbean Single Market and Economy, the CSME. I'm heartened that the Honorable Mia Mottley, the newly elected Prime Minister of Barbados, has assumed the lead responsibility for the CSME. Her known commitment to Caribbean integration and her belief in it as a vehicle for the betterment of the Caribbean peoples, together with her own record of delivering Caribbean results, encouraged me to believe that the brake which was applied to the CSME in 2011 will now be released and the process will be accelerated. I do not fool myself or anyone else that the process will be easy or swift. It will be challenging. But I know that it cannot remain on pause. And as the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has so persuasively pointed out, and I quote, CARICOM's current mode of marking time at an historic moment of overwhelming, awesome challenges for our region, which compellingly demands a more profound integration, is mistaken. Pausing is but a euphemism for standing still, which in a dynamic world is sliding backwards. End of quote. In fact, I differ somewhat with my colleague in the sense that I believe that the retrogression is more profound. And perhaps we're not sliding backwards, but we are skating backwards. The CSME calls for us to move beyond functional cooperation. It calls for the commitment of all. Each of our countries has to commit to and implement free movement of goods, people, services, capital, and technology. It is the only way in which our region will overcome the low level of both interregional industry and interregional trade. At the same time, it will have to be recognized that over the last 3 decades, smaller members of CARICOM have borne a disproportionate burden in the movement of goods, services, and people in the region. The CSME is likely to increase those burdens unless compensatory measures are instituted. Eastern Caribbean countries, the members of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, have absorbed a large number of people from Jamaica and Guyana, particularly over the last 3 decades. By absorbing those numbers of people, we have eased the strain on the economies of Jamaica and Guyana at a time of need. And that contribution is heightened by the remittances that these migrants send to their home countries. Additionally, in trade, The Eastern Caribbean countries suffer trade deficits with Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. Incidentally, in the wider context of CARICOM, my own country has also absorbed a significant number of nationals of the Dominican Republic, which now also enjoys a trade surplus with Antigua and Barbuda. The majority of Caribbean nationals who have been absorbed by Antigua and Barbuda are now citizens. They represent the changing face of the Caribbean, where nationalities become blurred and even merged. The reality is, we are all Caribbeaners. I mention these realities not in complaint, but in illumination and to guide our decisions for the future. I am fully aware that in any economic integration process, especially one that includes a single market, there must be gains and losses. The realization of the CSME can be good for us all, as long as we make provision within it for balance in the interests of all. The compensatory mechanisms in the CARICOM Treaty is not only to create balance, but is an investment in the nationals of the MDCs that are now represented in significant numbers in the populations of the LDCs. These are difficult but not intractable problems. If we approach them with the resolve to make the CSME work in all our interests collectively, I believe we can solve them. And as Prime Minister Mottley takes up the cudgels of this task, I pledge my government's support for its realization. In the context of CSME, as much as in the broader consideration of regional integration, I turn attention to regional transportation. This single issue causes the greatest irritation to all our peoples. They are rightly infuriated at the high cost of travel in the region and the profound difficulties to direct travel between our countries. Most frustrated of all is our business community. Even if we solve all the technical issues that permeate establishing the CSME, we will achieve nothing unless we implement the means to transport people and goods across the region. It is an imperative. As far back as 1992, the West Indian Commission made the telling point that, and I quote, West Indian integration would wither on the vine and die without adequate sea and air transportation services, end of quote. The Commission went on to say that, and I quote again, that the matter is, in the most profound and fundamental sense, at the very heart of the integration process itself, end of quote. That observation has grown in relevance in the passing years. The leadership of our Caribbean community cannot continue to abdicate responsibility for ensuring the availability of reliable and regional air and sea transportation. We cannot leave it to the private sector anymore than the private sector can leave it to us. It is a joint responsibility that is a precondition of success for a single market in which our business community moves its goods, and to the fundamental importance of linking Caribbean people together. Over the years, this issue has been studied. The studies have been studied. They have been shelved, dusted, and studied again. So I say to this meeting, if we are to manifest our seriousness about a single market, and if we are to convince the Caribbean people of our commitment to regional integration, we must act to establish effective regional transportation, even at the cost of a subsidy in its early stages. It's inescapable. The time for talking has passed. The excuses are stale and they are irrelevant. The time for action is now. Distinguished CARICOM brothers and sisters, the future of our region depends on trust and confidence amongst its leaders, particularly in how we deal with the external community. It will not be possible for us to strengthen our bonds at home if we weaken them abroad. Too often in the international arena, our countries have been divided. Loyalty to each other is sometimes sacrificed on the altar of narrow and short-term self-interest. Principles dear to each of us as small states are set aside to satisfy the agenda of some other nation or group of nations. In any event, it is our CARICOM collective that suffers. For we weaken ourselves by our divisions, making it more difficult to regroup to confront the very nations that lure us into convenient and temporary alliances to fight their causes, not our own. There's no doubt that our region is now challenged by deliberate actions that are destroying our fragile economies. The already deleterious effects of de-risking and the withdrawal of corresponding banking relations are well known, as is the frightening prospect that if these movements continue, our region will be cut off from the world's financial and trading system. The consequences for our economies and our peoples will be nothing short of disastrous. We cannot allow the unilaterally devised and universally imposed doctrines of the OECD, the FATF, the EU, to be elevated above the welfare of our people and the development of our countries. Even as I speak, the financial institutions in many of our countries are obliged to begin reporting to almost 100 countries on assets held by their nationals under the OECD's common reporting standards. It is a well-nigh impossible task, and in the event, very expensive, costing us resources we do not have, and likely to cause financial institutions to flee from our region. Yet, if we fail to comply, we will be branded as aiding money laundering and tax evasion. To fight these battles, we need to fight collectively. We need loyalty in our leadership. We need to stand together in the global community to cohere and not to divide, to serve our collective interests and not the interests of others. Today, I call for a unified Caribbean stand for collective Caribbean action, to resist and overcome external policies that are crippling our efforts to provide for our people. Fellow heads of government, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Caribbeaners, I thank you for your tolerance in allowing me to talk at such length on the urgency of renewed regional unity. Here at Montego Bay, we must all recommit to strengthening our union. We need it now more than ever before. And we need it with deeper commitment and greater strength as we face challenges in a world where there has been much talk about the problems of small states, but little action to solve them. The task of overcoming our vulnerabilities, of growing our economies despite the odds, of giving our people their rightful share of the world's bounty will only be possible if we enlarge our strengths by combining them. We should not dither, should not defer, and certainly we should not pause. The urgency is now, the time for action is now. Much love and blessings.
Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Browne
Thank you,
was...
Prime Minister Browne. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with an invitation to Dr. the Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, to address the opening ceremony.
Prime Minister Browne was re-elected to office following general elections on March 21 this year. Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. the Honorable Keith Mitchell, was also re-elected to office this year
Their
on March
Excellencies,
13.
the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General of Jamaica, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and Chairman of our Conference of Heads. His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of the Republic of Haiti and our outgoing Chairman of the Conference. Colleague heads of state and heads of government of the Caribbean community. Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and former President of the Courts, Dennis Barron, Chief Justice and President of the Court of Appeal Court of Jamaica, Ministers of Government of Jamaica and the Caribbean community family, Members of Parliament, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, my brother, members and heads of regional institutions, members of the diplomatic community, distinguished sisters and brothers all. Of course, I'm quite pleased to be here in Jamaica, which is regularly called Big Grenada. For this very special meeting, of course, with my regional colleagues, and to have another opportunity to share with you some ideas which I continue to believe will take this community forward. Brother Prime Minister, my delegation is, of course, most appreciative of the generous hospitality which has been extended to us by your government and people. Allow me to congratulate my colleague, newly elected heads of government of the Caribbean community, Prime Minister Gaston Browne, and my dear Prime Minister friend, Sister Mia Mottley of Barbados. I noticed that she has taken a page from my book. I hasten to tell her, though, she has 2 more pages to go. Colleagues, it might seem like I've delivered more than my fair share of addresses to this community and might be coming to an end. But as I present today in my capacity as one of the Prime Ministers given a new mandate by the people of my country in 2018, I'm reminded of the awesome responsibility bestowed upon us, some of us over and over again, by the people of our region. For that reason, we owe it to them to be more aggressive in pushing policies and actions that transform the region, turning us into a true 21st century societies. This meeting is occurring in a global context, characterized by the frenetic pace of change, changing political configurations, ideological tensions, social revolution, and an increasing anxiety by significant groups and communities about the economic, social, and political inequality and marginalization. Our CARICOM family, therefore, finds itself at the center of these global changes, significantly so in terms of the phenomena such as climate change and vulnerability, and economic and political inequality. Colleagues, the question is this: how does this CARICOM family reposition itself to navigate the new global landscape in the context of what must be referred to as the new normal for the small economies of the Caribbean? Colleagues, against the backdrop of these global economic and social challenges, CARICOM must respond by fleshing out our own place in this new normal. It is therefore critical that our community not allow itself to be a satellite of any power or group of powers. After over 30 years in the craft of politics in my country, it would be remiss of me to not signal to the region the possible perils of taking sides sometime blindly on the basis of entrenched ideology and philosophical positions. To do so is neither in the interest of the community as a collective group of states, or in the interest of the Caribbean civilization from the perspective of our nationals. I continue to believe, colleagues, that our greatest dividend as small states is in our ability to determine for ourselves on issues that are important to us, where our interest is best served, having regard to several factors. Among those are adherence to the principle of fairness, justice, democracy, and the rule of law. In this global arena, the time is nigh, that as a community we also must consolidate our positions on key hemispheric and international issues which hold profound implications for our region. On climate change, colleagues, in the context of the new normal, the 2018 hurricane season is once again upon us. Having witnessed the devastation that we had last year throughout many of our sister islands when I was chairman of the CARICOM community, the question must be asked, how prepared are we for the next one? What have we done in the months since to individually and collectively strengthen our systems and build the Caribbean resilience? I must commend the community, therefore, for its efforts in the last 10 months or so. In Grenada, I'm resuming office in March. We took a bold step to commission a new ministry for climate resilience. The mandate of this ministry is to strengthen our coastal and marine environments to help mitigate the effects of climate change. One of our first actions is to introduce legislation that will ban the use of plastic and styrofoam material that are harmful to the environment. Colleagues, as a region, we must also hasten our steps toward the transition to a green and blue economy, understanding that our future development is intrinsically linked to how successfully we exploit these formerly untapped resources. Governance and partnerships. Sisters and brothers, I firmly believe that we in the Caribbean can achieve what other countries have achieved in the area of resilience. Financing is one part of it, but we must also need the will. This new era requires our government's unwavering commitment to courageous leadership and an aggressive pursuit of policies and innovation. It also requires holistic decision-making, planning, and action. But more than anything else, as Grenada knows only too clearly, and as I'm sure my Prime Minister colleague Mottley is already accepting, it will need partnerships from our politicians or academics, the business community, trade unions, churches, civil society, the media, and our diaspora communities alike. Technology. We also need a renewed and continuous engagement with our young populations. Colleagues, in navigating this new normal and engaging our youth, there's one sure vehicle to take us forward, which we are woefully behind in riding. That is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And perhaps at the simplest level, ICT, the Internet and Information Highway. I must say at this juncture that CARICOM has indeed taken bold steps in developing the work plan for the CARICOM single ICT space. In a few months, we will be launching a multi-stakeholder partnership to fast-track specific elements of the single ICT space. Our steps in fully implementing this must continue to be clear, even while we push the proverbial technological envelope, so to speak, in rooting out and connecting other programs and policies to transform the community. Our people must be made to feel CARICOM. So I'll include here also our need to formulate a consensus CARICOM position and how we are going to deal with the pervasive, dynamic, and for many of us, mysterious global phenomenon, which will no doubt reshape our financial, social, and political systems if employed optimally. ICT must not be viewed as merely a peripheral to the ideals we want to accomplish, or something to be added to the education curriculum. Technology impacts every aspect of our lives. We as heads, therefore, have to be the ones to place STEM and ICT at the heart of what we want to accomplish in this region. Indeed, it appears that every single day there is some new global development in the technological field. In October 2017, the world gasped when Saudi Arabia became the first country to grant citizenship to a robot. Yet we continue to grapple with the rights of our own human CARICOM citizens. In May of this year, the European Union brought its General Data Protection Regulation into force. And that regulation has the potential to cripple many of our industries if we do not pay keen attention and fix our regulatory systems quickly now. There is a dynamic world, colleagues, unfolding before us, emanating from diverse applications of artificial intelligence, which could easily, possibly help, even with many of our health issues besetting our citizens. There are also simpler applications, such as blockchain technology, which is not only restricted to cryptocurrency. It could serve us well in our regional pursuits, especially those related to citizen and other community data. In my view, CARICOM cannot continue to ignore these great enablers of our time. We do so at our own peril and the peril of our generations to come. Therefore, colleagues, after 4 to 5 years, we must look dutifully ahead to the future of this community. In that context, we cannot ignore the urgent need to hasten the speed of integration. This community must be made to work for the benefit of all its members, not just the 2% who happen to be the beneficiary of higher education. Intrinsic in our efforts to serve must be the interests of those in our community who have not had the opportunity for success. We need to look ahead to pursuing and promoting strategic, formal, and practical cooperation between institutions of CARICOM and the media to better maximize synergies and create greater results for the people of our region. I will continue, therefore, colleagues, to advocate that our governments work collectively towards more accessible and affordable regional transport for the movement of our people, as already well articulated by my Antiguan brother. In conclusion, therefore, colleagues, over the next few days of discussions, one of our objectives must not be not only to focus on a results-oriented approach, but to hold each other accountable for the implementation of the decisions that we take. We must use the deliberations of the conference to speak in strong tones, sending a clear message that we understand and, in fact, recommitting to both opportunity and imperative for change. We must shun any action which contributes to what the economist Harding would refer to us as the tragedy of commons, where we believe that our individual actions do not hold larger consequences for the CARICOM family as a whole. Let us not leave here hiding behind phrases such as "we agree in principle," knowing full well that we intend to afford ourselves the political room to maneuver when it comes to the non-implementation of key actions and decisions. I've heard the word "agreed in principle" too many times in my ears here. My friends, I believe the deficit between CARICOM's relevance and influence, between opportunity and promise, between plans and delivery on the ground, should be at the heart of our deliberation at this 39th conference. The God we serve has afforded us another rare opportunity to get it right, to build a strong, resilient CARICOM family, lest we condemn ourselves to mediocrity and to the increasing global irrelevance. Colleagues, I look forward to our discussions and actions. I thank you all.
Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell, coming up next, the highly anticipated
Thank you, Prime Minister Mitchell.
address by Prime Minister Mia Mottley.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, remarks to the opening ceremony will next be made by the Honorable Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Governor General of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen and Lady Allen, Prime Minister Holness, colleague heads of government, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Honorable Adrian Saunders, distinguished members of the Judiciary of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Percival Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, members of Cabinet of Jamaica, members of Cabinet of the Caribbean Community, people of the Caribbean. I take delight in coming after, in every sense of the word, my colleague, Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. I believe I have much to learn and vow that once is never enough. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise today to play a maiden innings, conscious that I will not be compared against a male West Indies cricket team, but the female champions of West Indies T20 World Cricket. But let me say that I really can't tell you how good it feels to be in Jamaica. Jamaica is a country that has always had a special place in my heart. And Prime Minister, I must share with you curiously, that started in adversity, because my first trip to Jamaica, on day one, I lost property, and on day three, I had Gilbert. But in spite of it all, my love remained strong. Jamaica's untamed natural beauty has been a source of constant inspiration for me. Its vibrant, passionate people, very spice of Caribbean creativity, some would suggest. But Jamaica is a place where I also come to sleep and think. And for me, that is a special, special place. And with it, from Jamaica, I carry your music, because always it moves me to a very special place. But I'm equally conscious, as others have said here this evening, of the special significance of Montego Bay as we gather here. I'm conscious that that date, 71 years years ago, started a process that has inspired the work of us all. And that we have come here today to commit ourselves again in the shadow of those honorable men to that purpose that binds us as a region. It is no secret that my own country, Barbados, is in deep economic challenges. It is also clear that timely and decisive action by government and by all of our stakeholders in Barbados is needed to pull our country back from the brink. I know that my colleagues appreciate the seriousness of our circumstances and that they will understand that domestic priorities that the new government of Barbados is contending with are serious. Indeed, many of you have said to me that you believe that our own recovery is critical to this region. But at the same time, I come here, in spite of that crisis, with a very, very simple message. That while Barbados must of necessity look inward to fix what is broken, to restore hope and to heal a nation, my government will not ever stop looking out from within our shores. For Barbados, our Caribbean identity is intrinsic to our values, our culture, and our way of life. Our people in the region share a common history. And I remain convinced that our strength, our survival, and our success lie in being able to mount together against the challenges that we face across the region. As I've said on many occasions, including in this country, we are always better walking together than walking alone. So we are here to recommit. And I just said to Prime Minister Mitchell, as I could have said to Prime Minister Browne, their speeches have spoken to the need for commitment to regional integration. And very often, as they did, we speak in terms of the trade and regulations, but I want us not to forget our purpose and our passion, the people's interests. Behind closed doors at retreats and in isolation from our advisors and our population, we continue to develop these noble and lofty ideas and then delegate them for execution. Hide behind the phrase agreed in principle, as Prime Minister Mitchell just said. But recognize that no one is watching us in our words. And I wonder whether that in and of itself does not bring us to the point that in the same way we speak to our people through this opening ceremony in a speech, that our conversations among ourselves in plenary, not in caucus, ought not now to be the subject of instant streaming and broadcast, so that our people understand what we are doing and why we are doing it. I believe that if we were to do so, that many of the things that people relate and restrict only to economic and trade issues will come all of a sudden to recognize that we are also about building a civilization that is premised on the development and well-being of our people. I can do no better than to quote a former Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow, who 30+1 years ago observed that the regional integration movement is, in fact, a fact of daily experience. It is a reality which is lived, but which we have not yet been able to institutionalize. He pointed to our failure to find a way of using the collective wisdom of our people and to communicate the essence and the cultural infrastructure of the regional integration movement. Through trial and error, 31 years later, we are moving incrementally, albeit at a pace that may be less than ideal for too many of us, towards the elusive goal of institutionalizing our lived reality. And yet, we will fail again if all that we do is to box up within 4 square walls of regulatory rigidity, We will fail again if we forget people and we forget the cultural infrastructure of which Mr. Barrow spoke. Our political leadership must facilitate and shepherd, not control and stifle. What is most needed, I'm convinced, is for us to give our people the scope to express their natural inclination of togetherness and inclusion in ways that are productive and beneficial to the region as a whole. Our people should not have to jump through hoops to make this happen. What is needed is for us to foster the genuine buy-in of our people, especially our young people, as we heard Ambassador Laurent speak to in his address. To do so, we have first to recognize that in 2018, we have a constituency of integrationists by intuition and belief, a generation of educated, worldly wise, confident Caribbean citizens who learn, live, and love together, trade, work, and play together, share in each other's joys and cry at each other's tragedies. No boundaries exist in the minds of our young people. They are happy to see themselves as global citizens anchored by a Caribbean civilization. They're equally happy to discuss taboo matters such as mental health that many in our countries are frightened to even talk about. Our young people are special and they are different and they deserve the joy and full promise of what Norman Manley and Grantley Adams gathered at Montego Bay to offer. One thing I'm certain with them in this instantaneous world, they will not wait another decade for us to turn up for them. They will not easily forgive us for any further procrastination or lack of courage. And whether it is coming from Prime Minister Mitchell or Prime Minister Browne or myself, the truth is time is running out on us. And if we are truly to integrate our people, then this is what Caribbean people expect us to do. But they expect that this time round, they must own it, and they must control it, and they must promote it. If we recognize that in the past, too often, it has been a top-down approach, then it is critical that we do all that we can at this point in time to allow the integration movement to be owned by our people. And they understand the successes of it, believe you me. They don't deny the success of a CXC. They understand where CXC has taken us. But is that enough? They understand the successes of the gains we've made in public health and the establishment of CARFA, my own Minister of Foreign Affairs, playing a critical role in its establishment. But is that enough? They understand the importance of SEDIMA and CARICOM, which we met as COFAP this morning to discuss, and both of which actually point to a more glorious path because those two institutions refuse to be hobbled by language or by colonization as to who should constitute their membership. They are influenced only by geography. But if our young people understand these things, why are we frightened to move on? To be able to cooperate in other areas where there are clearly opportunities for progress, non-contentious areas in which there are no perceived winners or losers, and where the benefits are easy to identify. One such area, I strongly believe, is in fact with respect to the blue economy and the Caribbean Sea. We've heard others speak about it. In my own government, I have now appointed a Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy because our maritime space is 400 times that of our land area. And unless we come to the understanding of how to conserve and how to exploit economically our maritime area, unless we understand the patrimony of Caribbean people, as I believe the famous Jamaican Prime Minister referred to the Caribbean Sea, we will not fully be able to deliver to our people. In this regard, we come to understand equally that in a world of limited fiscal space, in a world where others are questioning the viable size of small states, that we have to recognize that we need to do things differently. This afternoon, much pride came to me as I watched the new president of the Caribbean Court of Justice come to this wonderful moment to be sworn in. And largely because I moved around this country and other countries in the region over a course of a number of months, trying to get us to come to the conclusion for the establishment of a Caribbean Court of Justice. We were brave enough to take the decision to establish a single institution. Same judges, same funding, one institution, but to vest it with dual jurisdiction. And the dual jurisdiction allowed it to function as a court of final jurisdiction for a number of us as a final appellate court, but equally a court of original jurisdiction as the treaty interpretation court of the region. I asked myself, if we could do it for the CCJ, why do we refuse to want to move to do it in other areas of functional cooperation? Why do we each want to have a fair trading commission when we have a regional competition commission in Suriname that can be vested with national and regional jurisdiction? Why do we seek to have separate civil aviation authorities when we can have a strong regional civil aviation authority that is vested with national and regional jurisdiction? And I can go on because our young people will expect of us those areas of cooperation where they can be had in circumstances where they will yield to the government additional fiscal space for us to address the things that we truly must be addressing in our own small way. Similarly, in 2007, we got together for Cricket World Cup. And we did it. We did it. We let people move throughout this region hassle-free in those 10 countries. We gave them a ban. We didn't even have anything fancy in those days. But what we had was an underpinning architecture to allow us to assure ourselves that the security concerns could be addressed. And we set up a joint regional communications center that allowed us to have an advanced passenger information system. And we became the first region in the world to vet information against Interpol, Switzerland being the first country. And then we stopped, and we gave it away. And if we could do it for Cricket World Cup, I don't think we should have to face the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that we spent in Cricket World Cup to have to be able to do it for Caribbean people again. It is certainly within our capacity to be able to allow our people to move, because before a single person leaves any port, we know who is there, who is a threat, and how they can be addressed. Therefore, the single domestic space for hassle-free intra-regional travel must be a place where we start if we are serious about the single market and the single economy. Must be a place if we want the buy-in of our citizens. The cost, we can go further to a CARICOM multipurpose ID, is not a cost that needs to be borne by governments, but it's a cost that can be borne by partnership, through partnership across governments, the private sector, and individuals in our region. But if we do it alone, it will always cost more. Similarly, a single domestic space for hassle-free travel presupposes a single domestic space for transportation. And I think we have reached a point where to talk anymore about how difficult it is to move from country to country and to do nothing is an exercise that if I were not in decent company, I would find a different word to describe it. Our people are intolerant of such idle conversation anymore. And if we are serious about a regional ferry service, then as governments, we must facilitate its execution by our private sector rather than talking about it at meetings. If we are serious about regional air travel, then we must address the fundamental concerns of LIAT and CAL and come to the conclusion that we can certainly do better than we are doing in 2018 with respect to moving people between island to island and country to country. I look forward, my friends, to our being able to also add value, not just to a single domestic space in transport, but to a single domestic space in communication and indeed information, telecommunications and information. Prime Minister Mitchell has already spoken about what is required from the point of view of ICT. I add simply to that, rather than to repeat, that we need also to make sure that information flows. For at the moment in the Caribbean, we are more likely to learn about what is going on in Iowa, in Thailand, and in every other region outside of the Caribbean than in one another's countries. It is unacceptable in days of instantaneous upload. That is why I ask for us to stream our events and to ensure that simple things, that if every night our television stations and our radio stations can carry 5 to 10 minutes of regional news, it does not cost us anything for us to put that in place. But what it does is to open the awareness and consciousness of Caribbean people on a day-to-day basis, not to mention the opportunities for economic growth and expansion for them. My friends, I can choose to speak at length today, or I can seek to abridge. And I choose to abridge because much has been said about the single market and economy. There was a consultation recently. Tomorrow morning we meet to address it. For me to address the other matters that have been stated before would be to repeat in a way that trespasses upon your patience. What I can tell you is that we do not accept that we should abandon all notions of the single market and the single economy. While we accept that there are practical realities that will preclude harmonious convergence with macroeconomic policies and fiscal policies, we do believe that there is significant room still for us to get with respect to aspects of our economic competitiveness, whether it is in terms of electronic commerce, capital markets integration, food security, or other areas that will simply make us more competitive with respect to our productive capabilities than we currently are. With respect to the single market, we need to get the project moving again. And I have not come to give you promise, but come to report progress. Our country has been one of those countries that we have heard reflect difficulties with respect to the level of red tape that our region faces. And anyone who knows Barbados well would know that I love the color red, but I do not love red tape. It is self-evident that the matter of accreditation and the issuance and verification of skills certificates has come to humbug too many of our citizens in their day-to-day lives. This is of great concern to us. In 2018, the age of blockchain technology, we must be able to do better at real-time communication, particularly as we go forward in the issuance of certificates and diplomas that will allow for more ease of verification. But let me share with you a small statistic to show you why we have to change and change urgently. In Barbados, between 2006 and 2018, our Accreditation Council issued 2,039 certificates and verified another 1,122. out of the total 3,161 certificates, 10 were fraudulent. In other words, 0.3% of the certificates that we spent months seeking to verify were fraudulent. It has said to us, and we have instantly agreed as a cabinet, that we need to change how we do business, and that we need to adopt and adapt the most favored nation treatment that we extend to us as countries to most favored people treatment and extend it to our people. And what do I mean by that? That we have to believe, and believe that there is a presumption of regularity and order, and pass legislation that will say simply that if a person submits a certificate, that there is a presumption of regularity, and that if that certificate is found to be fraudulent, we shift the burden of proof to the applicant to show cause why their certificate should not be revoked. If we do that simple amendment to the legislation, it means that that process, which is now taking 2 and 3 and 4 months, can now be done within 2 to 3 days at most with respect to accreditation. Similarly, I would want to address the issue of another topical issue with respect to our brothers and sisters from Haiti. And I'd like to say to the outgoing chairman that I would not know how to be responsible for a CARICOM single market and single economy today, and to require of our brothers and sisters of Haiti standards that are greater than those that we require from people who do not belong to this community or who are not signatory to the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. Every day, we allow people who are not members of this community to travel freely into the Caribbean without visas. Haiti took the extraordinary step of signing the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and committing to a CARICOM single market and single economy. In those circumstances, my cabinet has agreed to remove the visa requirements for Haiti because in our view, it breaches the fundamental tenets that bind us under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. And those tenets, for those who have forgotten, relate to non-discrimination and relate to not treating anyone outside of the community in a more favorable manner than we treat each other in the community. And of course, finally, non-reciprocity. Mr. Chairman, Barbados chooses to lead by example and not by default in this regard. In the case, sir, of other matters and other anxieties that have been expressed, some from this platform this evening, with respect to the difficulties that we may face as a region for those persons who may want to find succor in areas that may not normally and traditionally be able to accommodate them. I say that we've come to a difficult point in our region's existence. But it is not a point that requires of us decisions that will divide us. I do believe that a review of our purpose and our objects is absolutely needed if we are to avoid the nervousness of what free movement of people means in a Caribbean of large countries and small countries. And what do I mean, Mr. Chairman? That if we set ourselves a commitment to the achievement of minimum development standards for our people with respect from over 35 years ago believed that until we address the issue of automaticity of financing of CARICOM, we will be spinning top in mud. I still believe his words to be wise. I trust and pray that whether it is in the adjustment of the common external tariff or some other mechanism, that we will recognize that if Caribbean people are to succeed, CARICOM must be able to deliver and must have the finance to be able to deliver. Indeed, I ask you to recall the words of singing Francine, who reminded us in her famous calypso, Die with Dignity, that there will be no honey for CARICOM, nor any of us, if there is no money. And CARICOM will die, but certainly not with dignity. Mr. Chairman, it has taken us 7 decades plus 1 to get to this point. There are some, and I was not present there, who might suggest that if Grantley Adams and Norman Manley were watching us from wherever they are this evening, they would smile as they see that the crucible is still bubbling. But we would want, I'm sure you will agree, to send back the message to them that while the alchemist has not yet produced gold, there is still hope for tomorrow. So as current leaders of this, our great community, it is perhaps fitting that we ask ourselves the simple question: are we, the Joshua generation, intent upon finishing the business of our founding fathers and leading our people to the promised land? Or are we content to go separate ways, to walk around in circles in a never-ending wilderness, devoid of the vision and the courage to seek a new path or try a new strategy, or to end up in a mission that is not focused on the peculiar experience of Caribbean people? The choice, truly, is ours. I, for one, sir, and my friends, will never stop believing, and particularly against the background of a dub track from Sly and Robbie, that we are always better, always stronger, always working together. Thank you.
Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable
Thank
Mia
you,
Mottley.
Prime Minister Mottley. Now, friends, it is time to bring to your attention a group of persons who are as far away from those 4 square walls of regulatory rigidity mentioned by Prime Minister Mottley as you can find. A Jamaican favorite and promising to be a regional favorite, the Hertford Folk and Cultural Group had its genesis in 1981 in the community of Hertford, part of the densely populated cane belt of Westmoreland. Beginning with only 4 members, the Hertford Folk and Cultural Group has grown to 12 and has made its mark both nationally and internationally. The group is a popular participant in the annual Performing Arts Competition of the Jamaica Cultural Development Competition and has won for itself an impressive collection of awards. And the very evident mission of the Hertford Folk and Cultural Group is to foster the highest professional standard in the representation of Jamaica's cultural movement to local communities and visitors alike. This has become the hallmark of outstanding performances, and you will see in their performance today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hertford Folk and Cultural Group.
Evening, neighbor, evening. Evening, neighbor, evening. Evening, neighbor, evening. Good evening, neighbor, evening. Evening, neighbor, evening. Evening, neighbor, evening. Evening, neighbor, evening. Good evening, neighbor, evening. Cookie, cookie. You not see nobody pass ya. No, me friend. One of me dumpling gone. Me big, big dumpling gone. One of me hell of a flour gone. Then I what kind of thing make it? Flour, meal, a pinch of salt. Best put a goat meat, a little ketchup. So one of me big, big dumpling gone. Me hell of a dumpling gone. Me dig catch a piece so they can't walk me. Cause when you catch it with the salt mackerel and the saltfish and the coconut oil, and when you rock back up and lick your big finger, you know if you wonder how the yum yum sweet. Oh, cook yellow yum, boil yellow yum, all yellow yum, and the same way you yum. If you want to know how the yum yum sweet, aye. Catch a piece of the cardboard beef. For when you catch it with the salt mackerel and the saltfish and the coconut oil, and when you rock back up and lick your big finger, girl, you know if you want oh, the yum yum sweet. Rent a yam, cook up with ham, cook up with piece of overnight lamb. In Jamaica, the people say, rent a yam are the sweetest yam. One man in a old man was eating a piece of overnight yam. The yam was soft, buttery soft, and he fly down the old man throat. A lady come and knock him back, around pam pam, the piece of yam drop. Why, oh, the old man said, the piece of yam fly up in a bee. I tell you why, oh, yellow yam, why, oh, dry yam, why, oh, digger yam, why, oh, Lucia. I tell you why, oh, yellow yam, why, oh, dry yam, why, oh, digger yam, why, oh, Lucia. Apache land, where boat come from, he runs so fast because of the yam. When you want to know who are the bam, and because of the renta yam, the renta yam, the renta yam. Aye, for when you catch it with the salt mackerel and the saltfish and the coconut oil, and when you rock back up and lick your big finger, girl, you know how to wonder how the yam yam sweet. You know how to wonder how the yum yum sweet.
The heartfelt cultural and folk group treating guests to a taste of Jamaica's culture right here at the opening ceremony for the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of
One more
CARICOM.
time, ladies and gentlemen, the Hertford Folk and Cultural Group. The outgoing chairman of the Caribbean community, His Excellency Jovenel Moise, President of the Republic of Haiti, is now invited to bring his remarks.
Excellency, Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Allen, Governor General of Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, heads of delegation, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to speak up within this August Assembly in my capacity as outgoing president of organization. I am especially moved to visit for the first time as a head of state the land of Norman Manley. He whose efforts have enabled the creation of a new society guaranteeing universal balloting. I'm also thrilled to be among you, the Jamaican people, who the land of the talented Bob Marley, whose place of birth I had the opportunity to visit. His reggae marked Haitian culture and a large part of the youth of my country. I remember of the 1980s. In the name of the Haitian people and in my own behalf, I would like to commend the government of Jamaica for the great organization of this summit and for the Jamaican people for the warm welcome my delegation experienced, and I also thank the Secretary General for the quality of the documentation submitted to our consideration and by the contribution also of the Secretariat of CARICOM for preparing this conference. I especially greet the arrival of the great Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, as president of our chairman of our community. Mr. Prime Minister, I would like to tell you that I am ready to collaborate with you so that your term may be a success for the greatest merit of the region and of our populations. I am especially pleased to address in the name of the government and of the Haitian people and on my own behalf my greatest congratulations to the very Honorable Mrs. Mia Mottley, first woman Prime Minister of Barbados, for her amazing victory during the elections of May 2010. I take this opportunity to wish her success and progress for the Commonwealth of Barbados. Excellency,
honorables collègues,
honorable
chefs
colleagues,
d'État et de gouvernement,
heads of state and
mesdames, messieurs les
government,
chefs de
ladies and
délégation,
gentlemen, heads of delegation.
nous nous retrouvons près de 5 mois après le sommet de
We
Port-au-Prince.
meet again some 5 months after the summit of Port-au-Prince, during which we examine issues of extreme importance, notably
touchant la gestion des catastrophes
those
et l'assurance
having to do with disaster
Faut-il bien
management and
la conjoncture
post-disaster
internationale n'a malheureusement pas été favorable
relief.
pour
Unfortunately, the
certains de nos
international
thèmes clés
situation was
et
not
faire
favorable
certains
to
éléments
address
de
some
l'agenda
key
régional en la matière.
terms and move forward some elements of the
Permettez-moi de
national
considérer, par
agenda
exemple,
on the issue. And allow me to
la question
consider
de
it,
la
for
gestion des
example,
catastrophes naturelles
the issue of the management
et de
of
l'assurance
natural
post-désastre,
disasters and
dont
post-disaster
l'évolution a été
relief.
plutôt positive.
The evolution was rather
Je me suis
positive.
évertué
I
à
did my
promouvoir
very best
sur le plan
to
régional
promote on the
et
regional
international,
level and on the international level, in
à travers
particular
ma
through
participation
my
au dernier sommet
participation at the
du
last
G7 au Canada,
summit of J7
la
in
nécessité
Canada,
de mettre
the
en place
need
de
to
renforcer
put in place or
les
to
mécanismes
reinforce
existants
the
de
existing
financement
mechanism
et des
to
mitigations des
finance
catastrophes dans la région.
risk and mitigation of
C'est
disasters in
également
the
dans ce
region.
contexte qu'en juin dernier,
It's in this context
Premier
also
ministre
that
Holness et
this
moi
past June,
étions
Prime
invités
Minister Honest and
par
myself
le Premier ministre
were
du Canada
invited by the
pour
Prime Minister of
participer à une
Canada to
séance de
take part
sensibilisation
at
du
an
G7 sur
awareness
les océans.
raising session of
Cette
J7
invitation
on disasters.
représentait donc
This invitation
à la fois
thus
pour mon pays
represented
et
both
tous
for
les
my
États membres
country
de la
and all
CARICOM
the member states
une opportunité
of
de faire
CARICOM
entendre nos
an
voix
opportunity to
sur
have
un
our
sujet
voices
brûlant
heard on
concernant
a
la
very
situation des océans,
important subject
des mers
concerning
et des
the
côtes,
situation of oceans,
particulièrement
seas, and
celle
coasts, in
de la mer des
particular
Caraïbes.
the coasts of the Caribbean Sea.
Mon prédécesseur, le Premier ministre
My
de la Grenade,
predecessor, Prime Minister
vient
of
de parler
Grenada,
des
just
problèmes
spoke of the problems
des matières plastiques et du styrofoam.
of styrofoam and
Parfois,
plastic
nous ne sommes pas de grands
objects.
producteurs de plastique et de styrofoam.
We are not major
Pourtant, nous sommes
producers
les
of
grands
plastic and styrofoam.
Je pense que le moment est
However,
venu
we are the great
pour
victims.
que les
I believe that the
pays
time
membres
has
de
come
la
for
CARICOM
the member countries of CARICOM
peuvent se mettre ensemble
get
pour
together
dire non
to say no
à cet envahissement de
to
la mer
this
des Caraïbes
invasion of the
avec de la matière
Caribbean
plastique
Sea
et du styrofoam.
with styrofoam and
Nous
plastics.
autres, du côté haïtien,
We, on the Haitian
nous sommes en train de
side,
travailler
we're in the process of
notre ministère de
working
l'Environnement,
with our Ministry of the Environment,
avec
with
le ministère de l'Intérieur,
the Ministry
des
of the
collectivités
Interior and Territorial
apporter
Assemblies
une solution durable
to
à ce problème environnemental
find a
grave.
sustainable solution to this serious
Il me paraît
environmental issue.
particulièrement intéressant
It seems
de signaler
rather
que les pays du
interesting
G7
to me to point
la
out that
Banque
the
mondiale
J7 countries
ont promis,
and the World Bank have promised,
j'ai bien dit,
and I did say,
ils ont promis
they
3,8
promised
milliards de dollars
$3.8 billion
au financement
for
des
the
réponses
financing
portant sur la résilience
of
et
responses
concernant
bearing
la question
on
du genre dans les zones
resilience
touchées
and on the
par le
issue of
réchauffement
gender
climatique.
in areas
Ils
affected
ont
by
par ailleurs
climate change,
affirmé
by
leur
global
engagement
warming.
à
Moreover, they
à
affirmed their
l'édification d'un monde plus
commitment
sûr et
to
plus pacifique,
contribute in building
tout en
a more
reconnaissant
secure
que
and
le respect des droits de l'homme,
peaceful world,
l'état de
while
droit, l'égalité des
understanding
chances
that the respect
sont
of human
nécessaires
rights,
pour assurer une
the
sécurité
state of
durable
law,
et une croissance
and
soutenue.
equal opportunity to ensure
Nous devons donc unir nos forces
sustained growth to one and all. So
pour la
we must unite our
concrétisation de ces
forces
promesses.
to materialize these promises, because
Parfois, on parle
at
beaucoup de chiffres,
times a lot of figures are thrown around, a lot of numbers are thrown around, but talking about numbers is one thing, and the availability of the amounts is a different story. Ladies and gentlemen, the management of natural disasters requires all at once management by countries at the national level while contributing to a reasonable approach. In this regard, that I gave instructions to the proper authorities of my country so that Haiti's contribution to the special fund to the Caribbean Disaster Management Agency be paid as soon as possible. And I am of the opinion that the functioning funds for this institution, first of all, ensured by the contribution by member countries, because we are states, the input of the technical and financial partners should be only a means to reinforce our action. During this hurricane period that ends on November 30, I exhort my brothers and friends of the CARICOM to update their contribution to the fund and be more willing to look at this fund so that we can act together. I hope that the report for the revival of the Caribbean will be reported and validated during the second semester of 2018 at the meeting held in Port-au-Prince last February. I had proposed to organize an international conference on the reinforcement of the mechanism of resilience to the effects of climate change and the management of natural disasters in the Caribbean. The One Caribbean approach. Agenda conflicts and the international context were not favorable to this important activity being held. So now is the opportunity for me to reiterate my proposal to organize this conference in a very near future, because we are 15 countries, but we are one single Caribbean. Mr. President, it is clear that our organization is faced with a very difficult situation. It's important to put together our efforts to find the ways and means to reinforce the process of regional integration, as well as defining jointly the outlines and the relation between the ACP countries and the European Union. The last report, drafted by a special committee on the participation of Jamaica within CARICOM, the recommendations of the Committee of Legal Affairs bearing on the need to give automatic 6-month residence to Haitian nationals visiting Caribbean countries, the repetitive delays in the implementation of the revised treaty constitute palpable proof that our organization is at an important phase of its history. Each one of us must do its share and make the necessary efforts
notre communauté
so that our community
puisant
can
dans nos
be
valeurs fondatrices
even
de
more
cet esprit de fraternité et de
soldered
solidarité
by
qui ont animé
taking
nos
our
précurseurs.
founding
Les défis
principles
existants et futurs,
and the
comment
ideas that
que nous
animated
recevons
our
l'un
founding
l'autre
fathers.
pour y faire face ensemble.
We must
Seuls,
together
nous
face
n'y pourrons rien.
these problems because
Ce
alone
qui nous unit
there's nothing
est
that
plus
we
fort
can do. What unites
que
us
ce
is
qui
stronger
devrait
than
nous
what
isoler.
should isolate us and divide us.
J'en profite dans cet
I
esprit
take this opportunity and in
pour
this
saluer
state of
solennellement
mind to
la décision
solemnly
du gouvernement
salute the decision
Commonwealth de la Barbade
of the government
lever
of the
tout
Commonwealth
obstacle
of
à la
Barbados
libre
to
circulation
remove all
des
obstacles to the
ressortissants
free
haïtiens sur son
movement
territoire.
of Haitian nationals on its territory.
Et ce,
And
conformément aux
this
dispositions
in
des articles 45 et
compliance
46
to the provisions of Articles
Chaguaramas
45 and 46 of
Mesdames,
the
Messieurs,
reviewed Treaty of
tout en
Chaguaramas.
saluant les
Ladies
efforts
and
du secrétaire
gentlemen,
général,
while saluting the
République
efforts of the
d'Haïti
Secretary General, the Republic of
propose
Haiti
que nous
proposes
consacrons le temps qu'il faut
that we devote the
aux sujets
time
prioritaires.
necessary to priority
Il s'agit
issues.
des questions
We're
politiques et
talking about the
sécuritaires
political
et
and
l'intégration
security
économique
issues and the
à travers la
economic
mise en œuvre des
integration
dispositifs
to the
du marché
implementation
et économique
of
unique de
the
la CARICOM,
provisions of the single
CSME.
market of the CARICOM,
Nous
CSME.
sommes convaincus
We are
que
convinced
la mise en œuvre de cette
that the
stratégie
implementation of this
nous permettra de
strategy will
renforcer
enable
notre
us
intégration
to
au
reinforce our
commerce mondial
integration
et jouer un
in
rôle plus
on the
important
world scene
dans le
and
contexte
play a more
international.
important role in the international context.
L'augmentation
The
des
increase
échanges
of
intra-CARICOM et la
intra-CARICOM
diversification
exchanges
des
and the
produits exportés par la
diversification
région
of
aura des
products
incidences
exported by the
positives
region will have
sur notre balance
positive
commerciale et notre capacité
incidences on our
à
commercial
assurer le
balance
développement
and
durable
our
de nos
capacity
pays.
to assure the sustainable development
S'agissant
of
du
our
transport
countries.
régional,
As to regional
le renforcement de la
transportation,
compétitivité
the
des pays
reinforcement
de la
of
CARICOM
competitiveness
passe
of the CARICOM
par
countries
l'amélioration des
goes
infrastructures et
through
des
the
moyens de
improvement of
transport,
infrastructures and
ainsi
means of
que la mise à
transportation,
jour du cadre
as
légal
well
et
as the
réglementaire relatif à la promotion du
updating
commerce.
of the
Nous n'avons
legal
qu'un seul choix,
regulatory framework. We only
celui
have one single
d'emprunter
choice,
cette voie
which is
qui
to take
aboutira
this path
au
that will
renforcement de
lead
nos
us
relations
to
par
the
la création de
reinforcement of our
richesses,
relations in the
l'accroissement du
creation of
commerce
wealth and
et la libre
increasing
circulation des
commerce
personnes dans la
and the
région
free
en
circulation of
vue
the
de
people of the
l'augmentation du bien-être de
region
nos populations.
in order to increase the well-being
Mesdames,
of our
Messieurs,
populations. Ladies and
le
gentlemen,
contexte international n'a
the
pas permis la
international
tenue en
context has not
2017
enabled us to
du sommet des
hold
chefs d'État et
the
de gouvernement de
summit
la
of the
communauté des
heads
États
of
de l'Amérique
state
latine et de la Caraïbe,
and government
CELAC,
of the states of Latin America
lorsque
and the
la
Caribbean,
République d'Haïti
CELAC in
devait
2017,
représenter la
because the
CARICOM au sein de la
Republic
nouveau
of
cadre
Haiti
élargi.
had to represent
Les conclusions
CARICOM
du 8e
within the
sommet
enlarged
des
Troika, but
Amériques
the
tenu à
8th
Lima,
summit
Pérou,
of the
en
Americas
avril
held in
dernier,
Lima, Peru last
notamment
April,
celle
notably
relative à la crise
the
au
one
Venezuela,
pertaining to the crisis
sont
in
là pour
Venezuela,
illustrer la
are
complexité
illustrations
des relations dans
of the
l'hémisphère.
complexity of relations
Ces deux
in
faits
the hemisphere.
nous indiquent
These two
qu'un profond
facts
malaise
show us
traverse notre hémisphère.
that our region is crossed
La
by a
République d'Haïti
deep unease, and the
encourage les
Republic of
peuples
Haiti
et les nations à
encourages the
privilégier le
people and
dialogue,
nations to privilege
aplanir leurs
dialogue,
divergences.
to
Pour sa part,
flatten out
d'Haïti
their
croit qu'en renforçant
divergences.
l'unité
The Republic of
au sein
Haiti,
de
while
notre
reinforcing
communauté,
unity within our
pouvons
community,
jouer un rôle d'équilibre
can play a role
facteur
of
d'harmonie
balance
au
and
sein
be a
de l'hémisphère.
factor of
Nous en
harmony
avons
within the
besoin de cette harmonie
hemisphere.
aujourd'hui.
Because we need this harmony today.
Je suis convaincu
I'm
que la
convinced
participation de la
that the
CARICOM
participation of CARICOM
internationale
in the
a
international
lors du prochain
exercises,
sommet du G20 en Argentine
especially during the
sera
next
un succès
G20 summit in
grâce à
Argentina,
la présidence
will
de la
be a
Jamaïque.
successful thanks to the chairmanship of Jamaica.
Ces rencontres internationales
These international
devront
meetings
permettre
must
d'approfondir
enable
le dialogue,
us
conduire
to
au développement de
improve the
coopération plus large
dialogue and
dans
go more in
l'intérêt
depth
de
and
la
develop
région
larger cooperation
et de la
in the
communauté
best
internationale
interests of the region and the international
dans le
community
respect
in
de l'autodétermination des peuples.
respecting the self-determination of
Honorables collègues,
peoples.
chefs d'État et de gouvernement,
Excellencies, honorable colleagues, heads of
nous
state
allons
and
examiner
government,
des questions
we're
de
going
grande
to
importance
examine
pour notre
questions of
communauté
major
au cours de
importance
ce
for our
sommet.
community during the
J'ai à l'esprit
summit. I have in
question de la
mind
sécurité régionale
the
et
issue of
hémisphérique,
regional and hemispheric security,
renforcement de la
the
résilience à
reinforcement
travers la
of
gestion des catastrophes
resilience to the
naturelles
management of
et le
natural
processus de
disasters
reconstruction,
and the
le
reconstruction
fonctionnement de la Cour
process,
caribéenne de justice,
the
le
operation of
rapport
the
de la
Caribbean
Commission sur
Court of
l'utilisation
Justice,
de
the
la marijuana,
report of the Commission on the
le transport
utilization of marijuana,
intracommunautaire, la libre
community
circulation des biens et des
transportation,
personnes,
free circulation
sans oublier
of goods and
le
persons,
processus de réforme au sein de
notwithstanding
la CARICOM.
the reform process within
Je suis
the
sûr
CARICOM.
que nos
I'm
échanges
certain that our
sortiront de
exchanges
sages décisions de nature à
will
renforcer
bring out a wise
l'efficacité de la communauté
decision in
dans la
order to
recherche de
reinforce the
solutions
efficiency of the
aux problèmes
community
auxquels
in
sont
its
confrontés
search for
nos
solutions
pays
that our
et
countries
nos
are faced
populations.
with,
Je vous
as
remercie.
well as our populations. Thank you.
President of the Republic of Haiti, Jovenel Moise.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the University of the West Indies, UWI, or the UWI, is celebrating its 70th anniversary during 2018 with the theme 70 Years of Service, 70 Years of Leadership. The University of the West Indies indeed epitomizes the qualities of a sterling institution of higher learning in its record of service and leadership to the Caribbean region. The UWI continues to play a pivotal regional development role, contributing to the well-being of our people. In recognition of the UWI and its regional contribution, we invite you to turn your attention to a video feature produced by UATV. After the viewing of this video, Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, will perform an act of symbolic pinning of the chairman of the Caribbean community, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
It all began with a bang. 1948, the decade after the 1930s democracy revolution of Caribbean peoples. It was as much an intellectual eruption as it was industrial unrest. In the raging fires of the irrepressible spirit of indigenous self-determination, the University College of the West Indies was forged. One campus with a single medical faculty of 33 students at Mona, Jamaica. The incipient institution was rooted in the University of London, but within the first decade, regional political leaders rising from the labor movement and civil rights organizations made their first bold, courageous decision to detach the colonial college from its imperial scaffold. Their vision was actualized in 1962, the rise of an independent University of the West Indies. With the collapse of the Federation of the West Indies in that year, governments made their second courageous decision to save the UWI for posterity as a regional university. They looked to the visionary Sir Arthur Lewis to serve as its first vice-chancellor. The Tri-Campus University was created with 2 new campuses. First, in Trinidad and Tobago at St. Augustine, and then in Barbados at Cave Hill. Governments had made their third bold, courageous statement. A university dispersed across the region would best serve its many communities. Since then, every facet of regional development has been driven by the UWI: national independence, regional integration, economic transformation, global relations, public health, and the blossoming of Caribbean civilization. In short time, the genius of West Indian youth was unleashed. Many were inspired to take up the mantle of political leadership. 24 graduates have since become national leaders and prime ministers. Erskine, Sandiford, P.J. Patterson, Kennedy Simmons, Patrick Manning, Denzel Douglas, Kenny Anthony, Kamla Prasad Bessasar, Keith Rowley, Bruce Golden, Owen Arthur, Dean Barrow, Keith Mitchell, Ruben Meade, David Thompson, Frondell Stewart, Andrew Holness, Orlando Smith, Tillman Thomas, David Granger, Timothy Harris, Ralph Gonzalez, Hubert Minnis, Rufus Ewan, and Charlene Cartwright Robinson, all sprung from the illustrious alumni, carriers of Pelican pride. Some of them were born with the rebel seed, and then their rebelliousness advanced and deepened the democracy process of the academy and the region. Their call for a new West Indian order. The future of the region then was hatched to some extent on the floors of faculties and behind the doors of student dormitories. Students today, Prime Minister tomorrow, became a campus mantra. No university or college on planet Earth can claim, as does UWI, 10 sitting political leaders among its alumni. UWI in this regard is like no other. Alumni prime ministers have been joined by colleagues, graduates of other fine universities who are embraced fully within the UWI family. From Portia Simpson Miller and Eugenia Charles to Mia Mottley, Hugh Shearer, Michael Manley and Edward Siaga to Basdeo Pandey and Lester Bird Jr., Tom Adams and Morris Bishop to Alan Chastanet, Gaston Browne, and Roosevelt Skerritt. These prime ministers have led regional governments dedicated to the sustainability of the UWI. Within its proud bosom are to be found other trademarks of distinction, including the Nobel Prize that sets it apart as an institution of global distinction. Today, the UWI is celebrated as an academy of 50,000 students scattered across the region in its 4 campuses. Its open campus is constituted as a digital network of regional capacity that has shrunk the Caribbean archipelago into a global classroom. New members such as Bermuda and Turks and Caicos have since joined the UWI family, and in 2017, the government of Antigua and Barbuda proposed to host its 4th landed campus by merging and modernizing its many tertiary institutions into a single institution. And now, most dramatically, in the last 3 years, the university, looking to the future, has implemented its global plan, the 3rd EPIC restructuring. It has established centers for teaching, research, and advocacy in countries outside of the region. The UWI Suzhou Center for Software Technology now exists in Suzhou, China. The UWI SUNY Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development in New York exists within the SUNY system. The Center for African and Diaspora Culture now exists within the University of Lagos. Plans exist to establish similar UWI institutes in South Africa, England, the European Union, and Canada. Through these developments, the UWI will continue to support the region on the global stage.
I want to thank the University of the West Indies for hosting us. Big up, you win.
Thanks to you, our regional governments, our political leaders, to CARICOM, the UWI has been more than resilient. It has thrived. It has been a success. As its centenary beckons calling forth its complete digital transformation, our determination is to advance science and technology innovations, commercialize research relevant to green energy and the blue economy, creating the cutting-edge 21st century university necessary to further serve and lead our region deeper into the fourth industrial revolution. We shall succeed because we are an academy guided by intellectual and spiritual values deeply rooted in our history of survival as a community. UWI, 4 campuses, 1 global university, 1 Caribbean.
The symbolic pinning of Prime Minister Andrew Holness as the new chairman of CARICOM.
And now the chairman of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, will deliver his remarks.